Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're tuning in. My name is Finchely, and today I'm joined by Finchinator in order to commentate the match between Elodin and GarytheGengar. Let's hop right into it, shall we?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So, right off the bat, we got a sand team from GarytheGengar, which looks pretty standard, maybe even a little old school with the Heatran. Definitely bulky offense. The idea, you pivot around with the Landorus and potentially even Baton Pass Celebi to set up the breaking prowess from something like a Keldeo or even a Sand Force Excadrill. On the flip side, Elodin is also running a sand team, which you could describe as bulky offensive, but a lot less conventional. Instead of running a spinner like Excadrill, he's opting to use Xatu, which beats spikers like Ferrothorn, Skarmory, or Fortress. And that permits him using some spike vulnerable Pokemon like Jirachi and Garchomp that do forfeit spikes to those aforementioned spikers. But since spikes aren't going to be up, they're able to kind of rain more freely. In this game in particular, he's actually not facing any spikes as well, so that helps. But Gary did come prepared for these Pokemon. Jirachi is checked by Heatran, Excadrill, and potentially Landorus, depending on if it has a nice move. And Garchomp, definitely one of the stronger Pokemon on Elodin's team, but there is the potential for ice moves on Balloon Heatran, Keldeo, Celebi, and Landorus T, which also has Intimidate. So a lot is going to come down to what every Pokemon sets are. Big thing here could be Choice Scarfers. If it's a Choice Scarf Excadrill or Landorus from GarytheGengar, it looks good if Rotom-W can be pressured down, and the Pokemon on Gary's team that are designed to do that are there. Magma Storm Heatran, Sandstorm from Tyranitar, a Keldeo with Sacred Sword or HP Grass. On the flip side, though, Latios with Draco Meteor plus Surf is really good at forcing progress, potentially even baiting in Tyranitar. And the Xatu could even force, with Nightshade or Reflect plus Rocky Helmet, some progress on that Tyranitar as well. And in addition, Garchomp could potentially be cleaner in the late game. So, it's definitely a very even matchup and a lot of potential ways to make progress on both, but it's going to come down to what people are running in terms of sets.
Yeah, and so on the lead we see Latios coming out versus Celebi. Celebi usually is defensive, running like Rocks, Baton Pass, Leaf Storm.
Possibly,
yeah.
So there's that, or it could be Nasty Plot.
Okay.
But when you see it as a lead, you'd think it's more likely, as you said, to be a utility set. And it's really interesting here because Elodin is leading Latios, and that's kind of like a cardinal sin of Black and White. Because your Latios here, you want to check something like Heatran with Faster Surf, or the Keldeo by resisting its stabs. But if you lead, you risk dying to Pursuit very early in the game, and that puts a ton of stress on other Pokemon like the Rotom-W to check those, and that won't last well in the long haul. So Elodin could be trying to bait the Tyranitar and double switch out, or maybe reveal a stronger hit than Guy would expect.
So maybe either a Specs Latios, or like you said, baiting in T-Tar to bring in something else like
could be a bait and switch, could be Specs. I mean, maybe even Life Orb or Colbert with Thunder Wave.
I see. And then let's see what they end up doing.
Awesome.
So we see both players electing to switch to their own T-Tar.
Yeah, so we're gonna see the bait and switch. That's pretty funny. And I mean, you can't be in a more neutral position after this. You have the same archetype, and you have the same Pokemon staring each other down with no damage done. So that's a pretty funny start.
And so, what do you think of these T-Tars? Are they going to be more defensive utility with Stealth Rock, or more offensive leaning? What do you think?
So, on Gary's team, it's almost certainly going to be Choppleberry. There is a lot of speed control options on his team. Could be Scarf on either of the ground types. In addition, Keldeo is a Pokemon that's faster than Volcarona, faster than a mixed Jirachi, faster than opposing Garchomp, etc. So it's unlikely to be Scarf when you need something like Choppleberry to check a Signal Beam Alakazam, which is really good into this team, or check something like a Carmine Nicholas, which can potentially sweep this team. If it has Focus Blast, or even something like a Nasty Plot Thunderous Therian, where you could even live a +2 Focus Blast thanks to Choppleberry and take it out with a Rock Slide or a Crunch if it's weakened as well. As for Elodin, there's a ton of options, and this is kind of what I was talking about with the set interchangeability. You could be Rocks on Tyranitar, and then an offensive Jirachi and Scarf Chomp. You could be Rocks on Chomp and a Scarf Jirachi and a like mixed Tyranitar with Chapel Berry. You could be, Rocks. The point is, between those three Pokemon, one is going to be Scarf, one is going to be Rocks, and one is going to be kind of offensive utility.
Yeah.
My guess is that Tyranitar is less likely to be Choice Scarf, but both players are going to respect that. With that in mind, though, since Chapel Berry is very likely, neither Pokemon can one-shot the other unless it's a Choice Band Tyranitar, which is really rare in Modern Black-White. So it's kind of this awkward, like, stalemate, almost like that Spider-Man meme, if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's see what each player does in this mirror matchup. So Gary's going to go to Keldeo, as we do see Tyranitar get up Stealth Rocks. Keldeo looking in a bit of a pretty threatening position. Latios doesn't enjoy taking hits alongside Sandstorm damage.
So that's correct, but it does breed a little bit of confidence in Elodin's position to me, in part because, of course, Stealth Rock being up versus no Stealth Rock is always a good position to be in if you're not hemorrhaging Pokemon in the process. But also, since that is going to be Rock's Tyranitar, it more likely than not is, as we discussed before, probably a Choice Scarf Garchomp.
Yeah.
Choice Scarf Garchomp is really good into Gary's team if Stealth Rock stay up, because Landers takes 12.5%, and Excadrill, while being a Steel type, doesn't take Dragonite's Garchomp's moves too well. So a Scarf Outrage Clean looks like an early bet as the win condition for Elodin's team, or even potentially Dual Chop, if you will, in the same vein there. With that in mind, though, Keldeo, as you alluded, a threatening Pokemon. It could potentially go for something like a Hidden Power Bug or an Icy Wind to do a lot of damage to the Latios, or even a Sacred Sword should do around a third. Scald, if it burns, is going to leave it on a timer as well. So we're definitely seeing progress, being forced early on in this game.
Yeah. And so we do see the switch to Latios as Keldeo clicks Substitute.
Oh, very interesting. So yeah, right off the bat, Keldeo runs Substitute for two things. One, Latios has to either be Choice Specs or use Draco Meteor to break the Substitute of Keldeo. So if you use Draco Meteor and go to -2, then A, you might not even beat the Keldeo in the long haul if it's got a sub up, and B, it makes it easier to trap something with Tyranitar while keeping the Tyranitar healthy. Yeah, exactly. It also runs it for something like a Tentacruel that runs Toxic, where you can basically turn a losing matchup into something where you just sit there all day, wait for the Scald burn, and then slowly erode away at it. Now, this isn't a rain game, so it's more so relevant for the former. If this Latios was Specs, which we saw at preview, maybe he was trying to bait a Spec Surf into Tyranitar. If it is in fact Specs, then Surf here does break the Substitute, but then you're locked into a not very effective move. So Dragon Pulse could be another play. It'll be curious to see if Gary the Gengar has HP Ice, because if it does Surf Lock, HP Ice 2 kills, you lose the 1v1, and if it isn't HP Ice, then you could kind of just sit here uncomfortably and play that game. So it's going to be interesting to see, but this is a great moveset for Gary here.
Yeah. And so that's Specs damage, and no burn. No burn. So yeah, now it's going to be interesting to see. Both players could do a lot of things. We could just see Latios just kind of try and trade with this. We could also see the Rotom-Wash come in. I'd be pretty surprised to see anything else, and I think Gary is just going to stay in here. So yeah. So we do see the Rotom-Wash on a Sacred Sword, not Sacred Sword, Secret Sword, and Rotom taking quite a bit of damage from that. Not going to be able to.
Honestly, it is quite a bit, but that did so little relative to what it could be. That's like a bold. That's like a plus defense Rotom-Wash.
I see.
Which in this matchup is very good for Elodin, as it's going to be able to tank Swords Dance Excadrill or Landorus T's U-turn really nicely. But as we see, there's no leftovers, so that could mean it's Resto plus Chesto Berry, or its goal is just to trick a Choice Scarf and then slowly heal up with Pain Split later. There's a lot of possibilities there, so that's something to keep an eye on.
So do you think Gary will choose to play it safe? If it's Scarf, then
Gary's gonna go Celebi 99%. Yeah.
And we see a Protect.
Protect first. Yeah.
scouting for
A
choice.
trick or any nonsense. Yeah, just baiting the sand damage as well.
Then,
Oh, okay. So he goes for
ooh, did that crit
wow.
matter? Do you think?
Yeah, that crit 1000% mattered. Unlike a choice specs Latios, a Rotom W's Hydro Pump probably maybe has one or two rolls to do a 25% to Keldeo. I mean, between accuracy and the chance that's like, unfortunate turn there. It is worth noting that even after, let's say, you get the sand there, it goes down to 46. You click Protect, goes down to 40. You're still not killing with Sacred Sword. We saw it did 36 before.
Yeah.
But you're trying to avoid going to Celebi on a Volt Switch because that's going to give entry for the Jirachi or for the Tyranitar, which is completely fair. So that sub was a creative play. I was kind of hoping for the Volt Switch, but I guess Elodin either saw through it or Elodin predicted them to go to a ground type like Landorus or Excadrill to block the Volt Switch and then to pivot back, kind of catch a double switch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So now that it's definitely not Choice Scarf, do you think it's Resto Chesto?
Yeah, it's gonna be Chesto Berry, and I wouldn't be shocked if on turn 8 or 9 we saw it click it. In part because we might see a Protect from Gary, and in part because being healthy is pretty important.
Yeah.
You might be able to, for example, check something like the Landorus or Excadrill when you're at 25%. You can't do that. When you're at 100%, you can. So yeah. So this is a prime turn for Rest, potentially a Volt Switch as well. A Celebi comes in like we alluded before. And we could just keep through this turn. We're going to see right here that it is Chesto Berry. It is at full health. Celebi can only kill if it's Leaf Storm and Special Attack invested. On a team like this, where he led with it, Leaf Storm is more likely because you basically Rotom-Wash is a very common lead Pokemon, so you could have been trying to catch that matchup from turn 1. But when you're playing in a game like this, you're already 8 turns in, you've seen multiple other things. Yeah. It's hard to be sure of sets. So Elodin here probably is going to expect Gary to expect him to switch to a Jirachi or a Xatu on a grass move, or potentially predicting Stealth Rock if he goes to Xatu. So he might try and predict a double switch here and just stay in Volt Switch.
I see.
Gary, on the flip side, could either attack if he predicts a stay, or Stealth Rock predicts a stay, or go for that pivot, go for that double switch if he predicts a Xatu. So it'll be interesting to see. It's kind of like a soft 50-50 is how I would describe it.
So there's the Leaf Storm, and there goes Rotom.
Wow. And that is very unfortunate for Elodin, losing his check to 2 ground types, and potentially a soft check for the Keldeo as well. And this is a big kind of pivot point for Gary, who got a little unlucky with the crit before, and now is back in the driver's seat in this game. Yeah. But it is worth noting that this Celebi is at -2, and it could be Pursuit Bait. Of course, you could potentially have U-Turn. I guess it could potentially be Baton Pass. You don't see Baton Pass as much with Leaf Storm because you get the -2, but it's one way to circumvent Pursuit from a Scizor or a Tyranitar. So we'll see.
And in this generation, Pursuit doesn't trap pivot moves, right?
So on U-Turn, it would trap. So let's say I do U-Turn, I do 21% damage or whatever to Tyranitar. Pursuit would hit me like I'm switching out. But if I click Baton Pass, it would not.
Oh, interesting.
So if I click Baton Pass and he clicks Pursuit, that Pursuit's going to be hitting the Excadrill, the Landorus, the Keldeo, whatever he may elect to switch to.
I see. Got it.
Yeah.
And so there's a T-Tar looking to Pursuit, and there's a Baton Pass.
Yep. It's a very weak special attack Landorus there. And the Landorus, he knew that Pursuit was not super, like an Ice Beam was not super likely. Pursuit was likely, so he got that in safely, and now we could see, the game opens up from here, so we're going to wait and see what comes next.
Landorus, without Rotom around, Landorus looks a lot scarier. U-Turn, threatening, big damage on Latios, and does non-insignificant damage to Xatu.
Yeah, I mean, if it's HP Ice, it should do 40, Stone Edge to a KO, and U-Turn puts it into, range of danger versus other Pokemon. So the combination of the moves that it could use are pretty damning, if you will. And we see its leftovers as well, so it could even go for Stealth Rock here. It does not, though. It predicts to Xatu. Rocky Helmet damage is worth noting, but now we get the Keldeo in here. Xatu typically run Heat Wave for Ferrothorn and Skarmory, Nightshade to chip things like Tyranitar down. Psychic and Psyshock aren't super common, so Keldeo comes in here.
I see. Keldeo is getting on the lower side. Is it really the best play to bring it in here when Keldeo can't threaten a KO from fall?
Yes,
okay.
in my opinion. And it varies. So when you see that the Landorus T's leftovers, that means the Excadrill is Choice Scarf.
I see.
So locking into a move when this lives any hit, the Jirachi's at full health, the Garchomp's at full health, etc., is risking putting yourself in a bad position.
I see.
On top of that, if you go Heatran, you really don't want to lose its air balloon. And Xatu could be faster than some Heatran. It depends entirely on investment. Losing that air balloon makes Garchomp a threat. Also, if you take a Nightshade plus Stealth Rock, you could become into a KO for Outrage range. In short, the Pokemon I'd consider going to would be Keldeo and the Tyranitar. Tyranitar risks it being a Pursuit variant. A Reflect variant is Xatu. Xatu sometimes opts to ditch Heat Wave for Reflect plus Roost. So you click Reflect on the first turn, Crunch does a little under half, and then you Roost up and you stall it with Rocky Helmet.
I see.
So Xatu here can't kill Keldeo unless it's a Psychic move, and as we discussed, it's unlikely to be one. Scald does over half to Xatu. So while you think, oh, it's a Psychic type versus a Fighting type, it should fare well. Xatu is actually really one of the worst Pokemon in the metagame against opposing special attackers. And this is it kind of being exploited, here.
I
so
see.
yeah.
There goes the Scald. No burn. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, burn.
Yeah, the burn is helpful there. It's worth noting that after Sand it did to a kill, and the Garchomp being brought in here, well, it likely reveals what we alluded to before, that it's going to be a Choice Scarf set, because it's not Scarf on Tar, and it's probably a mixed Jirachi if I had to hazard a guess. As the only Steel type, and on a team with Stealth Rock Tyranitar, you want it to be leftovers just to take things like Reuniclus and Latios a bit better. So my guess is Scarf Chomp here, which can threaten to kill. You don't even have to Outrage Lock, just with Dual Chop.
Yeah.
And that means that you aren't going to Earthquake into air against a Heatran or Landorus. So it kind of covers everything here.
Especially with Stealth Rocks up.
Yeah.
Landorus going to be taking more damage than it really wants to be taking.
Correct. Or if he predicts the Dragon move and goes to Excadrill, especially since, as kind of we went process of elimination, it's probably going to be Choice Scarf Excadrill because the rest of the team is slow and it's lefty's Landorus. You take Stealth Rock plus Dual Chop, you don't heal leftovers, and then if you don't click, you can't one-shot a Garchomp. So you basically lose the 1v1 if you switch in here. So there's no safe play for GarytheGengar anymore.
I see. And see, there's a Dual Chop. Keldeo scouting the choice move.
Yep, and Protect Keldeo does some nice work here, but he goes to Drill, which, as we alluded before, but it's going to take like 30-ish, 25, 30%, yeah. And now you see, and no, you could go ahead and play through. This is not a super consequential turn. If he clicks Rapid Spin or Iron Head, he's now going to be in range to potentially, so he's now locked into Iron Head and in range of Dual Chop.
Yeah.
So while you're going to, go Landorus here, you don't take the Stealth Rock, but now your Drill is in range of the next Dual Chop, and your Landorus is in range of Outrage after leftovers.
Yeah.
So you put yourself in a position where, while Elodin didn't get a kill and forfeited his Stealth Rock, look at Outrage now. The only Pokemon that is really like, oh, I could take an Outrage any day of the week is a Balloon Heatran, which it doesn't recover from leftovers. It allows the Tyranitar in to set Stealth Rock up, and if Tyranitar comes in against it, you could also click Pursuit. Suddenly the balloon is lost and Earthquake hits everything besides a weak Landorus. So Elodin has put himself in a position where Scarf Garchomp is the win condition. And we kind of identified that early on from the Stealth Rock reveal on another Pokemon. But GarytheGengar did position himself well to both remove rocks and now potentially either set his own rocks or try and bait in the Xatu and get momentum. So it's going to be really important to see what both players come up with this turn.
I see. There's the lefties. We see Jirachi coming in on a HP Ice.
Great play there. Scouting out that HP Ice because he knew there's a couple options. You could go for Stealth Rock, you could for HP Ice. You're never going to go for Earthquake with Xatu in the back or against a Garchomp, which you do a lot less than HP Ice with. So, yeah.
And do Rachis commonly have Ice coverage in Black and White?
Yeah, so if you're going to be a mixed Jirachi, you're going to run HP Ice or Ice Punch. Which of them, it depends on the set, but since you're not intimidated, it's going to kill either way here. Then you're going to want to see Iron Head, Thunder, or Energy Ball are both options. You know, it depends if you want to hit certain weather types or you want to do more damage like a Rotom W. And then there's also the possibility of a Fire Punch. Could run Substitute or Protect, even Healing Wish Forth. You know, there's a myriad of options there. Point is that if we see its leftovers, as we could play, go before Landorus T's, or if it's not leftovers, then you're going to threaten this Landorus T out either way. With the X Drill now low, your only check to it, which is the same check as it is to Scarf Garchomp's Outrage, is Heatran. And suddenly we're going to see kind of Elodin's team just manifest around how can I get this Heatran as low as possible, and Gary be like, how can I position myself out of Heatran getting low as possible, as kind of the centerpiece of this mid-game here.
I see.
It is a faster Jirachi too, which is worth noting.
And there's the Ice Punch.
And there's Ice Punch.
And now Heatran's Balloon is...
Yeah, and now Heatran's dead to Earthquake, or any ground move for that matter.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is worth noting, you know, for one reason, in the Garchomp's Earthquake, but also, you don't have to click Pursuit next time with Tyranitar, so you could just click Stealth Rock, and suddenly all that Rapid Spin progress you made could be down the drain if you get a turn or two wrong.
And so do you think we'll see a switch to T-Tar here as the best?
I think T-Tar is possible. It could be Latios. He's not going to risk Garchomp here, though.
Garchomp cannot ever take a burn.
Not only that, it could if it's HPI is predicting it, it would be game over. So, yeah.
And there's a T-Tar coming out on Will-O-Wisp. That's going to be annoying, but T-Tar can still set rocks from this position.
Yeah, I mean, T-Tar isn't really doing damage. You don't even really need it to Pursuit Trap anything. Seeing as the Celebi revealed Baton Pass, it's really just here to essentially soft check Heatran / set Stealth Rock up, and then be fodder, because it's useless against Keldeo, it's useless against Landorus, it's useless against Drill. Opposing Tar, now that it's burnt, beats it. So it's kind of just there to set up rocks and vibe.
Oh, and there's the Taunt. So T-Tar doesn't...
Really cool set there, yeah.
Heatran completely sort of flipping the matchup. How much does Superpower do, if it is Superpowered T-Tar, do against Heatran here?
Probably around 35 to 40. A lot depends on a couple things. So with Balloon Heatran, you're not going to see a ton of bulk. And sometimes you'll see it run less speed, but it actually runs special defense rather than HP or defense, so that it can tank things like a Drago Meteor, or a mixed Jirachi's, you know, Thunder, Calm Mind Jirachi, or a Surf from Latios, or even a Focus Blast Malakazam. You actually don't really see it run HP or defense investment really ever. So if the Tyranitar is, you know, the standard, which runs like Adamant and a little attack to a Kyrie Nichols with Crunch, you'll probably see it do closer to 40. If it's just 0 attack, max special defense, it'll probably do closer to 30, 35.
I see. In that, well, either way, I suppose Gary's probably not going to want to stay in and risk that much chip, because then Garchomp Outrage is that much scarier. So
yeah, we could see a switch here to something like Celebi, Keldeo, or Landorus. If it's Earth Power, I guess you could stay in for 1 or 2 turns, but the Tyranitar, again, is pretty useless for Elodin, whereas the Heatran is very valuable for Gary. So I think he'll perceive the situation and also fear Earthquake on top of the potential Superpower and probably get out of there.
So we do see a switch to Lando on Elodin going out to Latios. From this position, Celebi still... Oh, wait, no, it's Specs Latios, though, so...
Latios... I mean, Specs Latios with like Dragon Pulse should KO it. And this is another thing, like, you want to go Heatran here instinctively, but you can't.
Yeah.
Because you want to keep it healthy, and if it comes down Surf, you want to go Tyranitar, but it showed Surf. It showed Specs, so you fear Surf, you know. And this was a really great double switch by Elodin because of that. So yeah.
So yeah, nothing from Gary's team really can take a hit from Specs Latios and come out on top. So Elodin's really just hammering in that nail, setting up the Scarf Garchomp sweep rather well.
Yes, definitely.
And instead of a move from Latios, we see a switch to T-Tar. What do Do you think Elodin's just trying to set up the stealth rocks?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically him saying, look, you are going to have to predict around me. If you predict Surf, you go Celebi. If you predict the Dragon move, you go Tyranitar. Either Pokemon you go to, you cannot kill me. If it's Celebi with Leaf Storm, you're not going to do 62% unless it's very special attack heavy and it's not fully Spadef Tyranitar. If you go to your own Tyranitar, well, it could kill if it's attack invested superpower through Choppleberry. But Elodin knows if he's got speed investment and other things, that's team specific. See, he basically said either position I'm okay with because I can get Stealth Rock up. If I get Stealth Rock up, then that Landorus T is going to stay in range of Outrage, and that Heatran is going to approach to a kill range, and that Excadrill is always going to die with Dual Chop even if I roll minimum twice, and so on and so forth. So it's basically him saying, I lost this positioning that I thought I won on the taunt turn, so let me take it back and then fodder my useless Tyranitar.
I see. So that's actually a really good play from Elodin.
Yeah, no, it's like a play that I don't think registered for either of us or most people watching the game at the time, but it was something that was brought up in like a number of Black-White Discords. Like, this was an underrated positioning play, and getting that rocks up is like really clutch, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So yeah.
And so he'll be Tom passing to Keldeo, and there goes up the rocks.
Yep. Now the only nuisance about this, and it's a great play here from Elodin, is he knows that this Keldeo isn't HP Ice. It revealed all 4 moves, I believe. Substitute, Protect, Scald, and Sacred Sword. Secret Sword. Sorry, I think we both hit that. So he knows it's going to click sub here because if you're burnt, Superpower is not breaking. So you then have 2 options. You could either go to your, I guess option 1 is staying with Tyranitar, let it get a sub up, and then like you're in a bad position is how I would put it. Option 2 is you go Garchomp here.
Does Dual Chop break sub?
It does not break sub without a critical hit.
I see.
But if you don't get burnt or crit by Scald, then you don't. It doesn't matter if your Garchomp's at 15% or 100% health in this matchup. It just needs to come in.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it could live like Magma Storm from Heatran. It'd be nice if it could live in HP, but you're not going to be switching it into much else.
Yeah.
So at this point, in this position, Elodin is like, look, if I can navigate this Keldeo sequence, then I have everything else where I want it. So therefore, this is the risk I will take.
I see.
In my opinion, if he had an electric move on Jirachi, it was probably okay, but his electric move of choice probably was Thunder, which if it misses on the Keldeo, could leave you in the same exact position where you've got to go Garchomp to Revenge Kill it anyway. So I think basically this is saying he's not Energy Ball or Thunderbolt, he's Thunder on the Jirachi, and therefore he has to risk the Garchomp.
I see. So there's the substitute.
Yeah.
It's a bit
and now
there's a critical hit. So that sequence ended up going really favorably for Elodin.
Yeah, and now it's very, very hard because Gary had a chance to crit. He had a chance to burn. He had a chance to at least like leave this in a range where maybe he could force it to be Dual Chop locked and then potentially pursued it with Tyranitar, or put it in range for a fire move with Heatran or whatever. There's a ton of different possibilities, but now that that's no longer the case, Scarf Garchomp really is the win condition in the sense that it's already forced 1 kill, it's forced Gary to play in a specific way, and now Gary's way behind the 8-ball after another unfortunate swing there.
Yeah. And we're going to see Gary bring in Heatran. Elodin just going to sack the T-Tar. Is that a HP Ice from Heatran?
Yeah, it's HP Ice, which basically means it's just Flamer, Magma Storm, Taunt, Wisp. They don't run Earth Power much this generation because opposing Heatran isn't very common. You have Wisp, Tentacruel, and Tyranitar, and you don't really need Earth Power for much else. In Fairy generations, Earth Power is pretty much a staple. In Black-White, it's almost the exact opposite, which is kind of funny.
So, going to see Gary switching out to avoid superpower damage since Heatran's health is so valuable.
And it also puts Tyranitar in U-turn range. He goes Xatu here just to make sure it doesn't go rocks. Xatu also is in U-turn. Oh, that's actually a good play for Gary because he gets free leftovers and then can kill with U-turn anyway. So that covered both. That's kind of funny. But yeah, so we're going to see the Xatu here come in to block rocks, but in blocking rocks, you give landers the free leftovers. It only helps for dual chop, though, not for outrage, but yeah.
And so, Elodin choosing to preserve a sack. Rachi.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty smart play, and that's another incremental play there, where now you get another round of Stealth Rock on this Heatran, and you get to save a fodder. So let's say you need to fodder something to scout out what Xatu locks into. You can now do that with both Tyranitar and Jirachi. And these are these little sequencing plays that, while Gary's gotten a lot of the big plays right, and Gary's been in a great position playing wise, besides being unfortunate twice, Elodin has made these little plays that have given them these incremental advantages, and that's another example there. But Heatran should be able to beat this Jirachi.
Yeah, Heatran does take that extra Stealth Rock, putting it that much closer to death versus Garchomp.
Yes.
So Elodin going to go out to Latios. Latios probably going to be able to take one Magma Storm and threaten really big damage now that Stealth Rocks are up.
Yes.
And here's the Fire
or
Blast.
Fire Blast. Doesn't make a difference. But if you're Elodin here, you'll probably just click Draco Meteor. It leaves the Heatran in range for everything. It kills the Drill, and it does the most damage to Tyranitar and Celebi. So no point risking Surf in the Celebi at this point.
Yeah. So do you think we'll see Gary sacking the Excadrill here, since at this point...
Tyranitar, Excadrill, Celebi are all possible. It just depends on what he prioritizes.
So here's a Celebi. Coming in on Surf,
That's a bad Surf. I really didn't like that Surf.
So now Celebi is going to be able to click buttons versus Elodin.
He could just baton pass out, because he's not going to stay in with Latios and spam Surf. And if he does, you could get Scarf Drill in and threaten the Latios. Basically, Draco force progress versus everything. Because let's say you Draco and he stays in with Heatran and kills you with Ice. Heatran's at 5%. So you kill it with even Dual Chop or Jirachi. So it felt like he was too scared to miss. Which I guess he's in the lead enough, but at this point, I would have not minded that.
And so, Elodin going to go to Jirachi on Celebi, baton passing out to Excadrill.
Now this is where that fodder that actually... Oh, well, now I'm curious. Keep playing. I was going to say this is where that fodder being saved is good. You could just go Tyranitar, and if he clicks Rapid Spin, you could just click Stealth Rock again. But he makes the aggressive play, which I think is kind of crazy, because let's say this clicks Earthquake, knowing that the Xatu dies to burn anyway, and he's never going to go Latios here. And he crits Earthquake. Not only is he alive, he didn't take any barbs, but you're dead to crit. And if he is not willing to risk the Draco Meteor miss, is he really willing to risk the critical hit on this Garchomp? Again, it's just a little thing. We're talking about the margins here, but I'm a big Pokemon nerd, so I'll nitpick for a moment. But with that in mind, it worked out for Elodin. He clicked Spin, you get the Garchomp in, you click Dual Chop, you get a kill.
Yeah. And so we're going to see Scarf Rock Garchomp. Very interesting set. That actually was quite a good position for Elodin, despite the perhaps questionable play, since Excadrill locked into Rapid Spin, which just died to Rough Skin, and Garchomp's just gonna...
Yeah, no, that's kind of icing on the cake here, because now you could click Pursuit with Tar, but unless it's A, very much attack invested, and B, gets a crit on that Pursuit, then you lose more or less the next time this Garchomp comes in. Or you could even lose now to the Jirachi as well.
And so T-Tar going to be used as sack fodder.
Yeah, because now rocks are up. Now you could go to that Jirachi. You don't even have to risk locking the Earthquake. And you just click Iron Head. And you're oh, he could go to Heatran. Heatran's now going to be below half health. And after a couple Iron Head flinches, or maybe even a fodder, the point is that Heatran's now going to be in that outrage range we discussed before. It could even be in Thunder range eventually, so yeah.
So we do see the switch to Heatran taking quite a lot of damage, in the long term.
Yeah, so it's already under 40% health, and now you could either go for flinches if you want, you could fodder to the Xatu here if you want. There's no real wrong play. You don't need Jirachi, but it also kind of wins the game. So I know that sounds funny, but it does outrun and kill everything besides Excadrill if you chip this Heatran further. But at the same time, if you want to find an opening for your Latios to click Draco Meteor or Dragon Pulse like you should have last time, or you want to find an opening for your Garchomp to come in, it's a fine way to just spam Iron Head until you're gone, or it's in Thunder Rain if you so please. So you could either stay in here, or yeah, he's gonna stay in here. That's fine.
Yeah. There's Iron Head flinch, and
if he flinches this one, Thunder should kill after that too.
We've seen Elodin make quite a few. At this point, Elodin's been gambling on the odds a decent number of times, despite other times seeming to, with that Draco turn. Is this generally Elodin's style? Like just mixing it up, playing safe sometimes, playing aggressive.
I think it's the style of Jirachi in every generation.
I see.
That's how. Yeah. I'm not sure it's Elodin specific, but yeah, we're gonna see on top of 2 flinches, 60% apiece, a 70% Thunder hit. Gary is noticeably upset in the chat, which he has every right to be. This has been an unfortunate game.
It's not.
At this point, you could go to the Rocky Helmet Xatu because it kills an Iron Head or Rapid Spin or dies and then gives you an entry point for Garchomp. And I think we'll see the game be cleaned out from there.
Yeah. So we do see Xatu coming in. Not the Garchomp as Gary maybe would have hoped, and we gonna see T-Tar come in as sack fodder to Outrage.
Yep, that always 2 kills with rocks. It's a roll to 2 kill without rocks. Landorus comes in here now. It might live if it's got some bulk invested, but HPI shouldn't kill without a critical hit.
I see. Well, did critical hit matter, do you think? Or if it was an offensive, if it was more offensive,
it's probably mattered, but you also probably need to crit HPIs to kill.
I see.
I would say unless it's a minus special defense Fire Blast Garchomp, but he revealed to be Stealth Rock last as opposed to Fire Blast. And he has Xatu to punish Skarmory, so it would be very unlikely for HPIs to kill.
Yeah, I see. And so we see Latios.
Yeah, and you could either just like Trick here, or you could even drop a Draco. It doesn't make a big difference. Trick is probably the safer play.
There you see the
he's going to recover, trying to predict the Draco. And that'll be that. I mean, like Recover Locked Celebi invites in the Jirachi. If you go to Drill on the Jirachi, you could fodder off the Latios from there, and
Garchomp.
Checkmate.
Yeah.
Is the point.
And so Celebi just recovering, but at this point there's nothing Gary can really do to claw.
Yeah, I mean, you could also just stall until it's forced to struggle. Because leftovers make it sand, and at this point, it's checkmate.
Yeah. Gary just struggling in vain, and we do see the forfeit.
That'll be a forfeit, and that's that. Good game. Elodin definitely made some really nice, plays around the margins there, positioning-wise, to open up for what could have been a Scarf Garchomp or a Jirachi sweep, which ultimately technically ended it, I guess, in a Latios sweep, ironically enough. With that in mind, though, really unfortunate game for GarytheGengar, both in the critical hit on... 2 critical hits, actually, on Substitute Kelia with the Hydro Pump, and then later on, the critical hit with the Dual Chop, which really made matters much worse. I think both players played pretty well. I think Gary, probably played even a little better, but between some awkward matchup dynamics with the Scarf Garchomp and some bad luck with critical hits, fell behind.
Yeah. While the RNG did pose a pretty significant, and it really tooled Gary's odds, even though he played quite excellently throughout the game. And well, that's Mons for us.
Yep, that's Mons.
And well, if that's all, then thank you so much for recording with me, Finch. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And for the viewers at home, be sure to tune into our weekly Sunday SPL streams. And thank you for watching. Have a nice day.
Thank you.